Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening to you, Scoob.
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Grab myself a cough drop.
Yeah. Well, that's always good. So you got a lot of talking to do.
I got this little candy jar dealio here that I got from my alma mater, and then I got back from Canada and had the convention crud.
Yeah, the crudness that pushed you into a week of conundrums.
Yeah. So I had some convention crud. So I got a fresh supply of cough drops, which oddly, that cough I've been fighting all year, this is actually helping out. So
yeah, well, sometimes cough drops can do that. When they advertise that you can stop a cough with a cough drop, hopefully one of them is going to work. So.
Oh, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyways.
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to Scuba and The RY. I, of course, am Scuba Steve, and my co-host, Mr. Rye Guy.
Rye Guy's right here, people. Focus. Focus.
Here's our mostly weekly conversation about movies, games, entertainment, and life.
Mostly weekly. That is true.
We're going to set sail into some things and
lots of things. Lots of conversations.
Can you believe it's been about a month?
Yeah, it's been about a month, but life gets busy. You do things, I do things, and that's what happens.
Do a lot of different things.
Yes.
Like, I know I had to do some traveling.
Yeah.
Went up to Canada for a work convention. That was fun. Looks like you've been up to some things around here. So.
Yep. Not no traveling like you. I only drive as far as ODU campus in Norfolk, but it's still a drive. Other than school shenanigans, I went to a wine festival this past weekend with my cousin and friend. Did some other shenanigans around the area, eating food. The Neptune Festival was canceled, but not the sandcastles. Sandcastles were still there, so went ahead and checked them out. My photos for the sandcastles are up on the Book of Face. If you can find me, that's where you'll find me. And other than that, just sticking to my workouts, work, school, and whatnot. So, keeping it real here and watching lots of movies. But hey, what's new there? Not really.
You're always watching stuff. Oddly enough, I haven't been watching a lot of movies, but I've been doing a lot of audiobooks.
Okay, any good recommendations?
Yeah, I'm actually been plowing through the Dresden Files.
Okay.
By Jim Butcher.
That sounds like spy espionage. Am I wrong?
It is and it isn't.
Okay.
It is the Jim Butcher Dresden Files series is kind of a fantasy mystery.
Okay.
You have Harry Dresden, who is a wizard.
Okay.
Who works as a private investigator in New York. Or not New York, Chicago. Chicago. He works as a PI in Chicago, and he's a part of the wizarding and supernatural community. And these books go through these various adventures and cases where some kind of supernatural element is having some impact. Some things kind of minor, some things kind of major, but it's this very large world. I think I went through like 5 books back to back right now.
That's pretty dope.
I think there's only a couple left, and then I'm completely caught up on the franchise.
Okay.
So that's a thing. Camera's still kind of goofy. I gotta replace that camera.
Is it doing the audio slowness?
I think so.
That's all good.
Yeah, I think it's doing something. Maybe it's because I'm trying to record at a higher fidelity.
Hey, high frame rate for the high guys.
Right?
We have to look pristine for you peoples. You. So. But it's all good.
Yeah, or it could be the phone I'm using for my camera is finally starting to not be able to keep up.
Maybe. It does happen that way. Technology starts to age after some point, so it happens.
I remember this is an iPhone 7?
Yeah, aren't we up to 14 as of last month? Am I correct?
Maybe.
So that was like 7 generations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Point taken. It's time to replace it with a new camera.
Yes, but you were talking about getting new cameras, so yeah.
I was because the Canada trip, and that's where I really was powering through the books because I listened to a Horus Heresy book for Warhammer 40K,
Okay.
the Thousand Suns book, which was really great because our friend Penumbra is big into the Thousand Suns as far as Chaos Marines,
Okay.
the immortal prophets, the Egyptian prophets, kind of deal. So this was a story talking about their kind of rise and fall and whatnot. So I found it was quite a fun read. And then it was the Dresden Files and just kind of going through that. So it was a lot of fun. And then it's like I get back and it's like the cliffhanger on the book. It's like I want to listen to the next one and the next one and the next one. So
You want to keep going and going like that.
well,
Yeah.
it's really bad when you have a subscription like Audible. Check out audible.com. They're not affiliated, but you got to check them out. You have the option to buy like 3 credits for $30, and each of these books are $25 a piece. So do the math, which is your bang for your buck.
Yeah. True. Makes sense. Do what you need to.
So normally I get 1 book a month, but I decided to, buy 6 credits and, pick up a stack more of my books that I'm trying to chew through.
Okay. Well,
So-
that's always, if it works, it works.
Yeah, and so I mean, a buddy of mine from Balak Airsoft suggested the Dresden Files books, and it's just you could act. I think this would be interesting for you as a writer because his first couple of books, you can see over the course of I'm on book 13. No, I'm book 12. Right? No, 12 or 13. You can see the evolution of the writing style
Okay.
and the quality of the writing from the first book all the way through these 12 books. And one of the ones I listened to is a 0.5 in the series because it's actually an anthology. Because as he got better at writing and became more well known in the genre that he writes in, he was asked to contribute stories and novellas to other anthologies that had a different theme. So it was very great because it's called The Case Files.
Okay.
And I really think because this one, especially because you're into writing, so I think you'll like this one. At the preface of each one of these stories, he explains the background for writing the story and how he had to take his world with Dresden and then write a story that fits the theme of the anthology and then drop Dresden into it and pretty much just sit back and watch it burn.
Well, yeah, sometimes you got to do that.
But I think it's an interesting exercise, especially if you're, and I think that's really great as far as also from a tabletop perspective as a dungeon master. When you try to weave your story for your players, you have your world lore and everything, and how can you take different themes? Like one of the themes in the anthology was had to deal with marriage.
Okay.
And so as part of his research, he researched kind of the old traditions of the honeymoon and Scandinavian lore and whatnot. Another one had to deal with birthdays.
Okay.
And so it's like for that one, it was a challenge because Harry, as you read the books, Harry doesn't celebrate his birthday. He doesn't have any family. So he's kind of, this whole birthday celebration thing is awkward. So it's like he decided, hey, you know what? How about a birthday for somebody else? And then Harry has to kind of be a part of that conversation.
Sounds very interesting.
So that was the premise.
Okay.
And then we throw in a mall that gets destroyed by vampires and all this fun stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those
the twist. The twist, my friends. you
Yeah,
know.
and it was the two of them. The 2 stories I liked the most were the novellas. One of them was told from the perspective of a whole different character.
Okay.
Actually, both of them were told from a different perspective, where Harry was In the first one, Harry was a side character, not the main character. And in the other one, it's like this novella takes place like literally an hour after the events that closed off one of the books. So it's like these little extra bits that kind of throw in to really bring out the world, which I think is great. Great fleshing out, great kind of idea of doing one shots in a larger story and larger world. So
Yeah, it's always good to see, creative bliss to happen like that, and you can just spin your characters into different settings.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good writing is so hard to find.
Yeah, it is. Like me, I've been working on another story. I did get inspired to actually almost finish the next story book I'm working on. But, it's always, you hit the wall and you have to think of other things. But what I do is like, I just jump to a different character or story that helps me trigger for another character and story back on the original story. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
gotta jump between things to keep the brain fresh on
Definitely.
stories. Yeah.
And it's just so much fun. And the thing is, there's also that point where things get cheeky.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole dialogue, and
Cheeky.
there's a whole dialogue in one of the books where Harry is talking to his assistant, and he makes a Spider-Man reference, and the assistant's like, "Yeah, well, it's a big, wide, multi-universe, so there's some place where Spider-Man exists and you exist, and."
More than likely.
You one universe you, one universe Spider-Man. Now here's where it gets cheeky. The fact is that Jim Butcher wrote a Spider-Man novel. So I'm thinking,
Interesting.
I have it on my wish list. I'm thinking that about this book that this conversation takes place came out roughly about the same time as the Spider-Man book that Jim Butcher wrote.
Hey, it could be a coincidence.
I think it's going to be hilarious when I read the book.
It's like, now I see, my friend.
See, it ties right back. We were talking about multiverse and Marvel and all that, and here we're finding an example of it in literature.
Yep, it happens. Good writing can do that, or bad writing. It just depends on how it falls into place.
Yeah, speaking of bad writing, I'm sure we're going to get into that for just a few minutes with some of our movie reviews.
Hence, foreshadowing a little bit.
But before we get into that, we want to take a moment and do a shout out and a thank you to Sirenscape.
Shout out.
Sirenscape is a collection of soundboards and audio files you can use for your tabletop gaming experience. Since it's October, we're gonna go with a horror themed, Halloween themed background noises, which I'm sure you're hearing.
Woo!
And go check it out. They cover a wide variety of stuff: sci-fi, fantasy, modern, old age. Great stuff to bring a little extra ambiance to your tabletop games or if you're role-playing game experience. And they have a web-based player and an app player that you can download onto your mobile devices or play via web browser on your computer. And if you're still doing virtual games, you can share that web player, the online player, to your other players, where they can all listen to the ambiance as you tell your story over video conferencing. So go check it out, Sirenscape.com. Check out all those cool things, and affiliate link in the description. But yeah, gotta get a shout out to them. 3 plus years in running.
Check them out. Always good music from them. Always good variety.
Hilarious stuff.
Yes, indeed. Hilarious more than some of the things I've seen, but it works. It works. Yeah.
See? Throw those extra sounds. Gotta love it. Alrighty. Okay, so let's talk about some bad writing with.
Let's talk about some bad writing, shall we?
Some bad writing with our movie reviews.
Yeah. So we're going to do. It's been a few weeks, and I like to watch a lot of things. So we're going to rapid fire in a few others and spend time on the better ones, or at least horror theme, if you want to call it.
All right. Well, let's start off with the anime that you got, because that came out a while back.
Yeah, it came out a while back, and I decided, hey, I wanted to watch it because it actually dropped on Crunchyroll, so it gave me a chance to watch it at home. I missed it when it came out, but it's called Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and it's actually a prequel, which is based on a manga of the same name, which is a prequel to the regular series Jujutsu Kaisen. So what this one does, it doesn't follow the main character of the series. It follows another character that is part of the school called Yuta Akatsuki, who's voiced by Megumi Ogata from Japan. And basically, in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, the whole idea is that you have these cursed spirits where you go to this school and you learn how to control curses to be able to cleanse them. And what's unique about this particular character, Yuta, is that he is actually possesses a powerful cursed spirit. So through circumstances, he is forced to go to the school, which is known as Jujutsu High School, which is one of the two schools that teach you how to do exorcisms and cursed spirits. So pretty much this movie is a prequel to the series. It does a good job of highlighting the greatness of the series, both the lore, dealing with all the cursed spirits, setting up all the ancillary characters that are from the series, but not the main character because it takes place before. But it also highlights great action, great animation, great anime, and it does a great understanding of, a few things in the series. What is a cursed spirit, the variety of skills to exorcise curses, and a unique position of this world. It all centers in Japan, modern day Japan, but it just deals with all these cursed spirits. And if you know anime, this is a great anime because it melds in all the different innate fixtures of anime action, comedy, and drama, but does it in a way where both it pleases the fans and pleases any newcomers without feeling lost.
Okay.
So, but overall, it was great. It did have its issues. It does play with a lot of cliche and moves quickly through it. But overall, it's enjoying anime film. 3.5 out of 5. It would have been worth seeing as a matinee if I got a chance to see it back in April or May when it came out. So, that is my 2 cents on the anime.
All right.
Now,
Let's get on to it.
let's do it.
All right.
What do we got on deck?
So what we have first is Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Yes.
Love and Murder, Friendship, Conspiracy. This one, I've been kind of out of it with my traveling and whatnot, so tell me about this one.
All right, so this is the latest from David O. Russell, writer and director. If you know this name, David O. Russell, he's done some great movies in the past. The Three Kings, The Fighter, and Silver Linings Playbook, just to name some 3 really great films that he's done. And like all those previous films, what he does is his stories all focus on creating moments of realism through the dynamic of relationships. So he focuses on character and dialogue, and that's what makes his movies great. And this movie starts off with that kind of appeal, where it focuses on 3 characters: Bert Bernison, played by Christian Bale, Valerie Voss, played by Margot Robbie, and Harold Woodman, played by John David Washington. And basically, they meet after World War I, and they form a friendship pact in Amsterdam. Title of the show, okay. And that sets the stage for the present day, where Bert and Harold get caught up in this murder plot that is tied into a bigger conspiracy to dealing with overthrowing the government, alluding to fascism, and a lot of other things that might be leading into the next Great War. On the plus side, what this film does great is that in at least 2/3 of the movie, like I mentioned before, he does a great job. David O. Russell does a great job of directing characters, dialogue, and friendship. What I call this is frenetic storytelling, where it's a loose plot thread and you're just focused on the characters getting through all this antic and all this craziness that's happening with them with no explanation, which is, if you do frenetic storytelling great, it can be great. But what he does, he outsmarts his own self, and the movie falls apart in the 3rd act, because instead of just focusing on the characters and focusing on that craziness that ensues on the journey, what happens is they try to wrap everything up, and you start introducing all these characters just for the sake of plot and for the sake of not character development, but plot development, and it just convolutes everything, and it takes away from that enjoyment of that friendship. So the 3rd act just pretty much falls apart, and it just makes you kind of look at the writing and just makes you see a snore fest, because it just becomes a bore and just very cheesy by the end, to the point of just not redeemable. So, yeah. So that's what I got on that one. So,
Alrighty.
3 out of 5. I gave it a 3 out of 5 because it was still worth seeing because of the 3 characters. So,
Okay, so character actors notwithstanding, but bad writing.
bad writing. Speaking of bad writing.
Don't worry, darling.
Yeah. Don't worry, darling. I know this was one you mentioned that you were looking forward to as well.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of cool because when I seeing the previews for this one, seeing that this has got, I can't even pronounce her name.
Florence Pugh.
Yeah,
Olivia
from the MCU.
Yep.
Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And kind of the vibe and feel of this, it feels like another one of those like Pleasantville or the Stepford Wives. It felt like it was another film in that genre. So it's like, okay, how can we twist on this whole mass cultism, or what kind of twist is on with that? But you were saying this is another one where it really it starts off great, but it just can't hold out till the end. So
I will be PC as best as I can. I'll give my rating right ahead of time with this one, just so I can go into explanation. 3 out of 5. It's still worth seeing in the theaters for 2/3 of the movie. So the movie focuses on Florence Pugh's character, Alice Chambers, who is living a perfect life, quote unquote, with her husband, Jack Chambers, played by Harry Styles, in a 1950s styles kind of community.
okay.
Everything seems great. Everything seems perfect because you have this community of people that's all working for a common goal, for a common mission. And then you have Alice and all the other housewives that, pretty much live in support of their husband as they focus on this mission to create this perfect community. And what you start to find out is that what everything seems is not what it seems to be. And you start to see this unraveling with Alice and all these crazy things that are happening around her. And what happens is this community is out in the middle of the desert. It's led by Frank, played by Chris Pine, and which basically he's the de facto leader of this community, and he's basically leading them to this promised land. So basically what it is that he wants to create a community where they fight chaos of real society with progress. And he keeps focusing on this idea of progress and living this perfect life and just living a dream. And once everything starts to break down, it starts to be fractured, and it starts to become like psychological, like what is really happening. And you start seeing Alice have these visions and start witnessing different things and start connecting the dots. And then the twist happens. And when the twist happens, all that kind of like alluding and all that foreshadowing, all that kind of mystery taken away, is this is a cult or not, it pretty much introduces so much logical fallacies into the movie that when they try to explain things, it makes it even worse. And then it makes you even hate how some scenes were set up in the first 2/3, because Florence Pugh does a masterful job in acting in here, creating suspense, tension, and just raw vigor when she's interacting with characters. But then once the twists happen, all the stuff becomes just forced dialogue for melodramatic sequences that it just leads to nowhere. And it has this ambiguous ending where I'm cool with ambiguous endings, but it just doesn't make any sense. And it's all because of the twist. And all that logical fallacies, it just ruins the direction, because then none of the scenes make sense, none of the craziness makes sense, and now it just makes like you wasted your time. But because of all the setup and stuff, it's still worth seeing, I think. So it's all on that twist. The twist is either going to make it or break it for you. So for me, it broke it for me.
Okay.
But it didn't break it too terribly, because still Florence Pugh is a great actress and she does a great job.
Okay.
So.
Cool. All right. Up for number 3.
Number 3.
This one, the writing gets better.
Oh, yes. We're on the other side. They say grass is greener, so.
6 films, 3 down, 3 to go. Let's
all right.
go.
And we're heading into the better ones. Hint, hint.
The Woman Queen, or the Warrior Queen, or
Yep, the Woman King.
the Woman King.
Yes.
All right. So how's this one stack up?
So this one, it has at the center of a character called Nansisca, played by Viola Davis, who is the general of the Agojie, who are the protectors of this tribe called the Dahomey tribe. And this centers in early 19th century during the slave trade, and it basically focuses on her character and on the Agojie and how they go about protecting their lives while also trying to protect their culture and their own history against this idea of the slave trade. So what this film does is that it does a great job of doing world building while creating a central conflict with the slave trade while layering it in with a hero's tale. So it does a lot of things that are familiar, but does it in a way that is unique and visceral. So
Okay.
what you see is that there's not just enemies abroad, but there's enemies at home. So not only are they fighting off the slave traders, but they're also fighting against other tribes who basically are fighting against each other because they're trying to win favor with the slave traders. So you see them attacking tribes and sending them off to be slaves and stuff.
Okay.
And
So typical for the period.
typical for the period, but what makes it so great is that through the dynamic of the drama and the dramatic tropes, there's realism in the dramatic tropes, and it's ingrained in the characters. So everything from Nansiska to Naui, Izogi, and Amiza, who are all these characters, you really care, and you find out the dynamic of why, what, and how they live in this tribe, and what are they striving for, what are they trying to protect. It all
Okay.
has this sense of sisterhood, strength, and overall camaraderie, and it plays through thick and thin, and it shows that warrior's hero's tale, but through a different light.
Okay.
So, when everything converges on the third act, it's just very powerful and very emotional with the things that has to be done, and it's very, even though it's familiar, it's very unpredictable because you don't really know where the story's going, and you're just watching the Agojie go through all this turmoil to protect what they have at home.
Ah.
So overall, it's a riveting journey of the hero's tale. I give it a 4 out of 5 full price. It's definitely a fun watch, and it does stay true to that tale while being something unique in its own right.
Alrighty. All right. Now, because again, it's October. It's that time of year. Let's do
Yes,
it.
it is that time for spookies. Ooh. In a way, I guess.
So our first two horror films that we'll be reviewing this month, we start with Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian, which is one of the horror movies that came out recently, and this one, how can I say this? I can't really speak too much about it without spoiling it. And this is another one where it has a twist, but the twist plays into the groundedness of the
All right.
story.
So how about this one? All right. How grounded is this in the terms of the suspense?
The suspense is that so you focus on a character, Tess, who's played by Georgina Campbell, and she arrives at this Airbnb, who also has another character, Keith, who's played by Bill Skarsgård. So there's a mix-hap with this Airbnb in Detroit, but they both decide to just stay together. And the groundedness comes in relationships and character. So what this movie does in the beginning is that it sets up the introduction to the characters, to the place in the conflict, but it does it so slowly and methodically that there's a sense of ambiguity of where it's going to go, because it doesn't feel like a horror movie within the first 20 minutes. It feels like it's going to be like a relationship drama because you're focusing on Keith and Tess. And then what happens is that through some creative situational setups, everything is driven through frightful moments of the situation, not typical scares. So it's watching through the characters' eyes on how they're reacting to the strange things that are happening in this house and in this neighborhood. And what makes everything so great is that the characters aren't stupid. I'm going to just say it out. They're smart characters, and they don't react in a very sloppy way to when things happen. So when things happen, there's a certain level of dynamism that creates this tension and horror through just them just trying to survive the visit and the reluctance of what's going on. And then halfway through the film, what it does two different things. It shifts the focus to another character, not going to say who or what, and then also does a flashback. So it does a present flashback in a way where it adds in story threads that doesn't convolute it like Amsterdam, and adds in a twist that makes sense, unlike Don't Worry Darling, where it adds even more girth to what's happening, because when the actual explanation of the horrific stuff that is happening, you have empathy for what happens in the third act. So you really care, but you're scared at the same time, and it's frightful to what happens by the end.
Okay.
It's like a bittersweet ending, but you're so tense that it's just like, it's finally over. So, yeah.
All right.
So
All
4
right.
out of 5 full price. This movie is outstanding, and it just adds credence to that this year has been the year of horror. So
Cool. All right. And our last film for tonight.
smile.
Smile.
Yes.
If you see it, it's too late.
Yeah, if you see it, it's definitely too late. So
All
yes.
right. I mean, this feels like, Last House on the Left, or the Neighbors, The Strangers, something like that, or maybe even maybe also First Impression. Maybe this is a sequel to Nobody, or whatever it was that last year.
Nobody. But nope, it's not any of those. And this is more in the vein of, think of The Ring,
Okay.
but think of The Ring if it was mentally unstable.
Isn't it already mentally unstable?
No, not in the way that this movie does. So I love The Ring. It's one of my favorite horror movies. And what this one does, it focuses on Dr. Rose Connor, played by Sosie Bacon, who she is a psych doctor at a hospital, and she sees psychiatric patients. And then what happens is that one of the patients, this is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, she witnesses a horrible suicide. So one of her patients kills herself in front of her, but with indicating that supposedly there is this creature or this entity or whatever that has been haunting her and says it's going to take her heart, soul, whatever. And then it kills her with that creepy smile, if you see the photo above us. And what happens is that traumatic events start to happen to the doctor, and you don't really know if it's just her having mental instability or if it's actually truly an entity, because what happens through the movie is that it's a very slow, methodical pacing, and what you watch is this unraveling through a psychological kind of thread that you really don't know if it's truly an entity or if it's truly her, because of stuff that's happened in her past. So nobody wants to believe her, and you're watching all this craziness and all this stuff happening, that the threatening state of the experience drives this multi-layer approach where you have characterization that is deeply woven into the use of subtle camera movement, score, and art directness. This is one of the most best directed films I've seen to date, because the way they use art direction in this movie to create tension, combined with all the elements that you jump when you don't expect it, and they go against the grain of using common jump scares, and the scares happen when you don't expect it, because you don't see it coming.
Oh, isn't that the best kind of jump scares?
Yes, because it's actual. It's actually you don't have it. So I'll give an example. You have a movie. You have somebody standing here, and then you have this open area to the left of their shoulder, and then you think you see something pass, and then they turn their head and turn back and turn their head. That's a jump scare. Or you look at a door and it's creaking, and then when they go to reach it and something jump scare. They don't do this here. Everything's driven through the psychological, through confusing you with, is she telling the truth? Is it an entity? Is it her own mental instability? And that leads into one of the best third acts of a horror movie that I've seen in quite a while, minus the black phone, because it's still my favorite movie. But it creates a dynamic when when everything hits the fan. You don't know what to believe. You don't know if it's truly an entity or is it truly she's just dang lost her mind. So it's an ambiguous ending that actually makes sense because you don't know, and that's what scares you, is you don't know. And you don't know what will happen next for whoever that entity attaches to. So overall, another great entry into the horror franchise. Another horror, and making a staple that 2022 is the year of horror. 4 out of 5 full price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So this has been the year of horror. That's all I can say. Every horror movie I've seen to this date has been great. And my favorite movie of the year so far is still a horror movie, which is Black Phone. So. But yeah, that's all I have in the movie deck. I have been watching a lot of different TV shows. We can catch up on all those later. I would recommend, if you do like horror, check out Werewolf by Night.
Yep, we'll talk about that one next week.
Yeah, so just to give you a hint, check out next week. Ha ha ha. Gotcha, people.
I haven't watched it yet, so we're going to wait till next week.
We'll save it for next week, and that one will be a pod exclusive, because I'm not writing for that. So it's going to be pod exclusive.
Alrighty. Wow, okay, so we got through that.
Yep. So you said you've been playing some Earthbound?
Yeah, I have the basic subscription for the Switch Online,
Yep.
which gives me access to Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. And on the and one day I happened to look, and because I've been really wanting to watch Earthbound again. Now, if you're familiar with it or not, Earthbound was a game. It's an RPG, turn-based RPG. It came out in the 90s. Because I remember playing it on Super Nintendo. But it's one of those, you got the book, you got the strategy guide with the book, because the game was so layered.
Yep, that's
in-
what
in
I've
stuff
I've
you had to
heard.
do, right?
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And well, here's the thing though. If you were to try to buy a copy of it, you're paying almost $200 on average for this game, because
a
it
lot
had
of
such
money.
a limited, it's so rare to find. So it's crazy.
Okay.
But it's kind of a modern era ish RPG. It definitely has vibes of like the early Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior and all those games. So it's great. Well, I started playing it, and I've been just sitting there, and it's like the most I've used my Switch since I bought it over a year ago has been to play this. Now, a friend of mine gave me some games. Like, I have the Metro franchise for the Switch. I did try playing that a few months ago, but the problem I found with that is the lighting on the Switch doesn't do that game very well. It's even if you have your brightness all the way up, it still feels like the screen is really dim.
Okay.
So it's hard to see certain elements. Now, granted, yeah, post-apocalyptic shooter like that, you're going to want shadows and things like that. Okay. But I loaded the same game up on my PlayStation, and I can see far more detail in the game on the up there than I could on the Switch screen.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the device.
Yeah. So, it just goes to show you some game, when you're one of those people who have multiple consoles and multiple options for playing games,
This guy right here.
you really have to start being picky about which console I play what game or what style of game, and what are my trade-offs if I play it on this versus that.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm hours into it. I don't even track, but one of my favorite features of Earthbound is when you get into fights, there's an option called auto fight, which basically once you click on that, you can set the console down and walk away. It's going to continue going through the turns and continuing the battle until either the creatures are dead or you're dead.
Well, that's good. It actually, gets you to get through the battles faster. So
Well,
that's always
especially when
plus.
you get to the point, it's like, because some fights you want to use strategy, but then when you level up to the point that you get to the creatures where it's like, look, I could just muscle my way through them, setting that auto and walking away and setting it aside. I use it as, I'll do that, set it aside, take a drink, check a message, something like that, and then come back to it. It's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
It always makes things a little bit better when you have that auto on.
I was telling my wife yesterday, it's like I played so much I had to put the Switch on the charger because the battery was done. Like, I've never had to do that on my Switch. I've never played that long.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. I haven't really been playing a lot of games. Well, that's a lie. I have been playing. I just have a variety. I just rotate through. I did go back to playing Lord of the Rings Online, which I'm having a lot of fun, and it's been a long time. But action RPG. What I'm looking at, which I showed you the video, which I didn't realize it came out. It's called Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, and I might get it at some point. There's another game that's gonna come out, but I'm hold off onto it till I see more gameplay mechanics. As that article you said mentioned gameplay mechanics, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotham Knights is on its way out.
Yep.
I heard some on my morning feed this morning from IGN, and they had the game is to the point it's ready. They consider it it's gone gold. Now, what does that mean? Well, back in the day when they used to do physical media as the primary means of distribution, that status meant the game was ready for mass production for that media. Obviously, in today's climate of a large percentage of it being digital media versus physical media
Yeah.
doesn't carry quite the same context.
Because it's kind of there.
But we all know there's going to be day one patches that are almost as big as the game. We all know this. Have you not played Call of Duty in the last 5 years?
Yeah, or anything insert game in the last 5 years.
I mean, what was it? Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk. How many of them had like day one? It's like, oh, here's a 20
The
gigabyte download.
only game in the last few years that didn't have that was Elden Ring. Elden Ring did not have a day one patch.
Oh,
Yep.
cool.
It literally had a complete game when you bought it, which doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
And what they did after the launch, they just added more stuff, more quests to do. So that's all they did.
Yeah, I'm giving up on my camera, so I ordered a replacement. I'll have a new camera for next week. I went ahead and got that Elgato face cam, so we'll be playing with that next week. But yeah, this one's dead. Because yeah. Anyways, moving on.
It's all good. But moving on.
But the other game I went back to, because again I've been binging a lot of audiobooks, so I needed something to kind of occupy my hands. Didn't feel like painting miniatures because I felt sick. But I pulled up and started playing Minecraft again.
Really? So how's that going?
Surprisingly well. They've added, since the last time I played, they added some new difficulty modes. So now I have the option for easy mode, normal mode, and hard, and then peaceful. Obviously, I spend a lot of time usually playing in peaceful because I don't want to deal with the mobs. But this time I saw an easy mode where it's like the mobs are still there, but they hit at half strength. And you can't go down below 5 hearts.
Okay.
From hunger. It's like, okay, well, let's give that a shot. I'm quite happy because it's the amount of things they've added to Minecraft that are in the mobs since last time I played was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The only gripe I have with Minecraft is, and this is my gripe, is unlike my other games through Game Pass and on in Xbox, if I play it on the console, I can pick up my game save on the PC and vice versa if it's one of those games.
Yep.
Minecraft is not one of those games.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So it's like, that's very irritating to me. Because I would like to say if I start the world on the PC, I'd like to, and I want to change my location, I'd like to continue the game on my console. Can't do that. Different worlds on different devices. Too much work.
Yep.
Too much work.
Yep.
So.
It happens. So, but yeah, Minecraft's a fun game. I did want to mention the game. I was trying to think of the name of it, so I was searching over here, but it's on Game Pass, so that's why I started playing it. And it's called Immortal Phoenix Rising. Okay. So it's like that Greek open world game that has like Breath of the Wild kind of physics and fighting.
Oh.
And it's actually pretty fun. It's cel shaded and it deals with Greek mythology. And you're playing it with this character and you're basically fighting through, and there's puzzles, and then you can climb everywhere and beat everything. So it's kind of a fun, fast pace. Definitely check it out, Scoob. It's on Game Pass for free. It's called Immortal Phoenix Rising.
Speaking of what's on Game Pass and that kind of genre of theology,
yeah,
Valheim is now on Game Pass.
I thought about you when I saw that, and I was thinking maybe we should do a thing.
I'm actually curious because I want to see if it can connect to my server I have run, my server I have running. If I'm understanding right, that is supposed to be cross server.
Yep.
So should be good.
Yep. So if you want to try it one night and we're both free, I'll get on the Xbox and see if I can not die.
Yeah, not die. Yeah.
Yeah. Not die.
Well, I like it. It's an open world and progress. It's kind of an open survival game, but you actually have checkpoints that progress the story.
Okay.
So it's like you have to complete certain tasks to move things along, but in between those tasks, you're surviving by crafting and doing stuff. So it's that sandbox kind of survival game.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I thought it was a lot of fun. I played it for a little while, but I mainly set up a server for my friends to play on. So I had the extra server space and wanted to learn how to set it up, so I set it up for them to play on.
Yeah. So definitely, if we can get it to work, then I'll try it out. Sneak it in there of the rotation of other games that I'm playing. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about games. Speaking of games and talking about games, you got a couple of news stories here that are all kind of linked together. It's like
Yeah,
we have
we're all
there's
dealing with games of some kind.
well,
So,
it's like you have you have a comment here for Street Fighter 6, the full roster,
yep.
Tekken 8.
Yeah, it was announced. Tekken 8 was announced. They released the full roster for Street Fighter 6, but the articles, they speak for themselves. But what I focused on the discussion with this is that the longevity of fighting franchises is
Okay.
that when you see Street Fighter is Street Fighter 6 minus all the other stuff in between, and in Tekken 8, and that just sees the longevity of these games and how their popularity has kept them in prime. Not to
Especially
forget,
these two franchises, because Street Fighter is like one of those,
yeah,
nostalgic things. Like you couldn't be a kid in the 90s without knowing Street Fighter 2.
yeah. You had, like I did. I had Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat,
Well,
and
yep.
those were the games that you had.
Well,
And
Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, Virtual Fighter, Killer Instinct,
yeah,
which
Killer
is my
Instinct.
personal favorite.
Oh yes,
Old school Killer Instinct. I remember quite a few days.
Ultra Combo.
Well, I remember those days back playing laser tag and Ultra Zone.
Yeah,
Here in Hampton Roads, and they had the Killer Instinct
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
arcade game.
Yeah.
And you'd be sitting there messing with it, and then they released it on Super Nintendo ahead of the N64 and all that craziness.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I mean, some of those fighting games are great.
Yeah, and it's just with those announcements, it just realizes is that they, a lot of stuff, it shows the iconography of these franchises, and that like even with them doing a new game, they always bring back certain characters because they're just recognizable. So when you look at the full roster for Street Fighter 6, a lot of them are recognizable names, are prime for it.
With Street Fighter, you had Street Fighter Alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah, their roster kept growing
Yeah,
every few
yeah.
games, and
They
they did some redesign on the characters, like Ryu and Ken,
Yeah.
and different phases and whatnot. But you still have like your core
Yeah.
group of them. Now, the biggest thing for me with fighting games is thinking about the story. Like
yeah.
Street Fighter, it's like that story is really kind of, it's like it's not as heavily strong on the story as say Tekken,
Yeah.
and way more so than and like Mortal Kombat seemed to like have a loose story, but then they wanted to spend time developing the story.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't that's the thing. If you want to talk the evolution of these fighting games, all of these games, the story was very loose. Like if you were not somehow like rummaging through the developers' trash for the lore, you really didn't know what was going. You could tell there was lore behind the game, but they didn't go into it a whole lot of detail until they get 3 or 4 editions of the game in. Then all of a sudden they're dropping lore elements and lore pieces, and then it's like you get to like, was it Mortal Kombat 12 or 11?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 11.
And those last 3 games, they really had a story that connected each of the games together, but was still also like tying back to like early Mortal Kombat. So it's like those things, it's like it's weird because of the way the story, it's like the story was there, but it was more focused on the fighting, and now it's the fighting because we all know who these characters are and what they do. Regardless of what game, they still have these signature moves, but now we're like trying to push the story along.
Yeah. So it's like they improve not only on the story aspect, but they layer in different fighting mechanics into it. So with each iteration, they add in more different moves and different variety because with technology, it improves the arena that they fight in. So you can use a lot of dynamic, especially with like Street Fighter. They add in like new special moves on top of the popular moves that you have, and then with Tekken, it's much more combat focused. So they introduce new variety and different ways that you can fight, and also keep building that roster in Tekken.
I love my favorite thing about Tekken is the fact that a lot like which that evolved from Virtual Fighter, if I remember correctly. The nice thing with Tekken is the fact it was the first one that really had that spinning combat area.
Yeah.
Like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat early Mortal Kombat games. They added it later.
Yeah.
But it was basically left to right, or right to left was your fighting area. It didn't change too much. Mortal Kombat added an element where if you did something just right, you could change the area for a finisher. But Tekken was the one where it's like, okay, I'm going to roll left, and then you watch the actual combat square rotate
Yeah.
as you worked around. So it was one of the first ones that I remember seeing that actually had that
Yeah.
three-dimensional space for fighting in, a lot like how Virtual Fighter did.
Yeah, Virtua Fighter had it. Tekken started it. Dead or Alive was another series that incorporated
that was
it.
another one.
Yep.
Soul
So,
Calibur,
Soul Calibur was
Smash Brothers. I mean,
another one, which is I call it under the radar kind of fighter, which I liked a lot. It was called Guilty Gear. I don't know. It's a more of an anime cell shaded fighting game, but it was very fast paced and frenetic. So it was in.
Hey, we're talking now. We got to talk about Capcom.
Yeah.
Capcom verse whatever.
Yeah,
Capcom versus
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
I
Marvel
mean,
versus Capcom. Insert number. So.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just a good discussion with the release of these games coming up. It just shows the strength of, familiarity, but the longevity comes in how they, evolve both the story, the characters, the fighting dynamics, and also incorporating new technologies. Because one of the big things with the new Tekken game is that they're using Unreal Engine 5, so the realism is going to be even kicked up a notch in that game.
So the next thing we got here is the Toy Hall of Fame class of 2022.
2022. So we've come about this Toy Hall of Fame starting from the last couple of years, and every year they have nominations. So this year they have some finalists coming up, and they actually have a link where you can vote on them.
Which we'll put in the description.
Yep. So the games that are up for finalists this year is Bingo, Briar's Horses, Catan, and just to add a little tidbit, which I found out this week, is that Catan is actually getting a video game.
Yes, it's coming to console.
Yeah, so Light Bright, Masters of the Universe action figures, Nerf Toys, Pinata, Phase 10, Pound Puppies, Racco, Spirograph, Top. Yeah, that's it. Those are the finalists.
Light Bright. Oh my gosh.
Who can't forget about Light Bright? So
Pound Puppies. Whoa.
Yeah, that brings you back, right?
Yeah, it does. That does.
So Nerf Toys was big when I was a kid. But who do you think? If you look at these, who do you think? Just say three that are going to be definites. Just three.
Masters of the Universe, Pound Puppies, and Light Bright. Done. No need. We're good.
Okay. I say Masters of the Universe. I say Light Bright, and I'm going to pick a dark horse here. Nerf Toys.
Okay.
Nerf Toys is universal, and it crosses generations.
No. Remember, it's Nerf or nothing.
Yes. Boom. And we'll put the link in so y'all can vote. I think you can still vote. I don't know.
Hopefully. All right. Well,
at the time you could, so who knows. But if not, and this makes a reason to go visit, because we were talking about this museum before, the Strong National Museum of Play, which is up in Rochester, New York. So.
Well, that, and it's looking at these and looking at the nostalgia they bring in. It's like, what's making these kind of memorable? Pound Puppies, because it was a stuffy, it was a cartoon. There was like a little story when you got those.
Yeah.
Masters of the Universe. I mean, come on. What 80s cartoon did not?
If you were a boy in the 80s, you had action figures, or any generation, you had action figures.
The He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Light Bright, I remember that constantly being on the TV, where it's like you had the little light thing and you poke the holes in like Battleship and create a character. I've never played Settlers of Catan though. Yeah. I've wanted to, but my friends who are big into games are like, man, it is too slow and yada yada yada, and it's like, all right, well, you clearly don't want to play the game. Okay. Find someone else who wants to play, but if they're getting a video game variant,
it's not hard for me to pick up a controller to play something. So, so it'll be cool to see which one gets in, and then it'll be cool to see this time next year who the finalists. So look forward to next year. We'll definitely bring that up. So
all right. So next we have it looks like E3 is coming back. You found something from Kotaku. telling us that E3 will return
Yeah.
in person next year.
Yeah, in 2023, it's happening, folks. It's happening. E3
Now, for
is coming
context,
back.
E3 was canceled the last few years, and this recent cancellation, they weren't sure if they were bringing it back because the purpose of E3 has changed over the years,
Yes.
and in a mostly digital market, E3 is not as viable for that, considering Nintendo pulled out of doing a presentation. PlayStation and Microsoft all pulled out. Most of them all do their presentations on their own schedule virtually, so there isn't a lot of need there.
Yeah.
And the original purpose of E3 was to give retailers like GameStop and whatnot an idea to preview the upcoming games, and then they put in their orders for what they wanted to sell, the quantities they wanted to try to sell for during the holiday season.
Yep.
Earthbound, I'm looking at you. There's a reason why you're $200 a thing in a used game market now.
Yep. So it is coming back, and it's coming back next year at the Los Angeles Convention Center. It's going to take place between June 13th and 16th. They'll have also digital events that will start June 11th to the end of the convention. Also, the article indicates that once the doors, there'll be industrial days, only days, but it'll open up to fans looking to try games and stuff. The industrial attendees will meet June 13th to 15th, while June 15th to 16th will be gamer days for fans. So, yep. So it's looking good. And if you like conventions and definitely want to check it out, check out E3 next year.
Alrighty, so there's an interesting one, and another bit of gaming news. Womp, womp. I gotta find that sand trombone. Where is it? There it is.
There it is. Do it. You got it? Wah.
We gotta talk about that because it has been announced that Google will be ending the Stadia.
Yes, so it's been announced also through Kotaku, as the article states, quotes, is shutting down its video game streaming service Stadia on January 18th, 2023. So,
which, it's kind of nice because they're letting they're not charging for the subscriptions.
Nope.
They're gonna let you play until they shut off the servers, which is very nice. But this is what, 5 years, maybe?
Yeah.
For Stadia?
Yeah. It was a good idea and concept, but the way they executed it was
less than that, because we were talking about Stadia here on the podcast. So the podcast is roughly the same age as the Stadia.
Yeah. So, yep.
But we're going to last longer.
Yes, we will. We'll always have something to talk about. But unlike Stadia it was an interesting concept and was something to dabble with, because it is a different way to game, using cloud-based and in your controller. But the thing is, their execution was done poorly. Not only did you pay for a subscription and stuff, but you're also paying for games. No, we all pay for games, but these were like 3-4-year-old games that people have already played. They didn't really have anything new to garner people to come to their selves. They're still going to use the technology with other platforms they have, like YouTube and other parts of their business, but the consumer-facing app, which is Stadia, is getting pulled down, and they're refunding all the purchases that people had on there. So that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty decent marketing stuff.
Yep, and refunds are expected to be completed by mid-January. And note that while Stadium is dying, quote, the tech behind it will still be available to industry partners for other joint ventures. So the technology is there. So, I'll give them props to at least trying it, but execution wasn't there. Hopefully another group or working with other people can actually develop that cloud-based thing, which you have it with Game Pass right now. So, which I use it a lot. So. Yep, it's there. The potential is there. It's all about the execution, people. All about the execution.
Alrighty.
Yep.
My voice is almost shot. And right there, we feeling good about how we are. We want to hit these.
Yeah, these are quick hits, so I can definitely run through. If your throat's drying down, I can let me water up real quick.
Yeah, well, drink up.
I've been talking all day because I've been training all day, so.
All right, well,
I am used to it.
Our first, got some interesting odds and ends, and odds and ends are things that Rye finds on the interwebs that give our opinion.
Yeah.
For me, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be my gut reaction
Yeah.
to the
Which
headline.
is perfect.
And there, so we have our first one.
Yeah, first one.
First trip to the beach.
Yeah,
At what age? Well,
yeah, what age was it? So this is out of our local affiliate, Wavy News, and a North Carolina woman is celebrating her 108th birthday. Not only is she celebrating it, she crossed one more thing off her bucket list.
a trip to the beach.
Yeah, she's never been to the beach until she visited back in mid-September with her family, and she got to visit it on her special day.
Oh.
So, I've never been to a beach. 107 years old and never been to a beach. But, you know, I can't be biased. Yes, I live here, so I'm used to having the beach. There's some people that don't. So, but it is awesome when you are able to cross something off your bucket list. So.
Alrighty, next up we have the world record for milkshakes from Arizona.
Yeah, so as reported in foodandwine.com, there is an Arizona drive-in that not only makes one, but two, how many milkshakes?
266 different varieties of milkshake to break a world record.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to do it, you go big or go home.
Yeah. So it's this happened this is a place that's located on Route 66 in Seligam, Arizona, and since 1953 officially set the Guinness Book of World Records for largest display of milkshake varieties by whipping up that 266 different flavors over the course of about 75 minutes.
Wow. In a little over an hour, you can have 266 flavors of milkshake.
Yeah, and it took about 20 or 30 employees working together to make it happen.
Oh, well. Hey, there's a claim to fame.
Yes. So, yep, that is a lot of milkshakes. It bests the previous record. So, the previous record was 207. So, it bested about 50 something more. 50, about 50 plus more.
Yeah.
So, yep, great job to y'all, Arizona.
Next up, we have a story for an Icelandic tradition of throwing puffins off cliffs.
Yes, so this one was kind of interesting, and I thought, hey, we got to talk about this. So this is reported by NPR. So what they do in Iceland is that every year, during the puffin season, what they take is chicks of the Atlantic puffins, or pufflings. They hatch in burrows off the high sea cliffs in Iceland, and what happens is that a group of people throw them off the ledge and they go flying into the water. So that is a tradition.
All right, I got no comment on that one. I mean, it's obviously it's a cultural thing there, which is cool.
Yeah. It's cultural, and just to add into that, this human tradition, quote, has become vital to the survival of the puffins.
See, that's where things start to get a little weird. It's like these animals had their routines, and now you're coming in and you've changed their routine. So, better and different, animals will recover. And our last odd and end story for today,
also from NPR,
is talking about McDonald's is implementing adult Happy Meals.
So, you talk about nostalgia, and you talk about, hey, I'm a kid, I go to McDonald's. What do you want as a kid? You want a Happy Meal. Well, you're not a kid anymore. You're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you're like, you still want a Happy Meal. Well, McDonald's decided this month to introduce a limited time only. The Happy Meals aren't just for kids. They can also be for adults. So, quote, McDonald's teamed up with the fashion streetwear brand Cactus Plant Flea Market to release an adult meal box complete with a classic character toy.
Wow.
Starting Monday, which was last week, through October 30th, quote, McDonald's will offer the Cactus Plant Flea Market meal box with the nostalgia. So the box comes with a meal and a classic McDonald's character. So that is either Grimace,
Hamburger,
Birdie, and newcomer Cactus Buddy. So you can get your Big Mac and your fries, and you can also get a toy, people.
Oh, boy.
So, but it's only a limited time, so it's only for this month. So, what a way to celebrate Halloween with an adult Happy Meal.
Yeah, I'll go with that one. We'll call that.
What is in this meal box? So, I'm looking it up. So, it looks like it involves a Big Mac, and fries.
Wait a
But
minute.
the special thing is you get a toy. So that's all that matters.
Hell, you can just go into your McDonald's right now and go, hey, I'd like to get a number 5, but put it in a Happy Meal box for
Yeah.
me.
But, it's another cool way to market, I guess. But,
Yeah, I mean, it's that pulp culture thing for the generation coming up where they're used to, getting a Happy Meal to do X, Y, this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, hey, it works. I mean, you gotta admit, McDonald's and their Happy Meals have pushed a lot of product.
Yes, I remember every Friday my mom taking me and my brother to McDonald's, and we would get our Happy Meals and get our toys. So I love that.
Alrighty, well, I think that wraps us up for this week.
Yes, sir.
Again, let's do a shout out and a thank you to Sirenscape. Make sure you go to sirenscape.com, check out their wide selection of offerings for tabletop soundboards and experience. And thank you to them for the soundboards that we're using in this show. Excuse me. It's like you feel a hiccup coming, but then it doesn't come, and then you think it comes, and it. Anyways, also, hey, if you're enjoying this stuff and you want to support the show, please leave us a review, leave us a like.
Thumbs up, people.
And if you're checking us out on the YouTube, again, I apologize. My camera apparently is dying. I will replace it this weekend.
Whoa, damn it.
In the meantime, definitely go through and click on that like, subscribe, hit the bell if you're new.
Yeah.
Feel free to leave a comment down below. Tell us who your favorite nostalgic toy, or what do you think a adult Happy Meal should entail. Thank you again to Rye, as always, for coming to hang out for another night. We had wings and then talking about our stuff. Thank you
Namaste.
all of you for watching and listening. Like I said, please like, review, share it with your friends, spread the word, spread the good word about Scuba and The RY.
Spread it, people.
And
Spread it.
if you want to do more, we do have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Scuba Studio and consider being a patron. Get some info and updates and check out some past things that have been going on. Now it's been really quiet right now with work and travel and all that stuff. But check it out. Alrighty, and with that, we're gonna call it a night. You have a good one, stay safe, and we will see you next week.
Peace. Bye.
Bye.